Okay, everyone, before we get started with our normal introduction for today, Kaden is going to share a few words with us.
All right. Thanks, Emily. Hey, friends. We just want to take a brief moment to acknowledge the variety of trauma that folks are experiencing here on campus right now and throughout our nation. In the wake of the recent death on campus, and along with the ongoing hate and violence inflicted on marginalized groups in this country, and the ongoing effects of a global pandemic, we really felt it was important to share some resources. So in a moment, I'll post some links in the chat that will direct you to the counseling services page for students, the employee assistance program for employees, and the Silver Cloud Health app that is available to employees and students alike. So please tap into these resources as needed. Reach out to the supports you have in your life, the people you feel safe with. This is a time where a lot of us are grieving, are struggling, and it's okay to not be okay right now. And we just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Emily and I'll post those links.
Thank you, Kaden. And I just want to acknowledge all of your ongoing presence here today and throughout this conference. It is hard enough as is to engage in our personal, professional, and academic lives, and to see you, especially some continuing and familiar faces attending these sessions, means that you're putting in a lot of extra work on top of what is already hard to achieve in our lives right now, as Kaden said, with the ongoing traumas both on our campus, in our nation, perhaps in our personal lives. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank you all, and thank you for whatever ways you can or maybe can't engage right now. I'm going to go ahead and get us started for today then. So this is week 3 of the MCIC series. We have one more program tomorrow, and as we know on our campus, this is a pretty short week. The MCIC series is a virtual conference series throughout the month of March. The series is hosted by the Department of Campus Climate. We have had a lot of other partnerships across the institution that not only have helped us build this conference, but continue to work with us throughout the month. I know that Caden is sharing some resources in the chat as we speak. He will also share our community standards for the MCIC series. We do expect folks to read and acknowledge and follow our community standards today and throughout all of the sessions this month. At this time, I do want to ask to please mute your microphone when you are not speaking. This reduces background noise and is respectful to our presenters and everyone else in the space. Closed captioning is available for all sessions during the MCIC series. You should be seeing closed captioning in a dark gray box at the bottom of your screen. If you do not, please follow the steps on your screen and you're looking for the View Live Transcript button. This is possibly on the button that says CC or under the More button. Please message us utilizing the Zoom chat if you're having any technical difficulties. As a reminder, most of the sessions for the MCIC series will be recorded, and this session is being recorded right now. This is being done to make all of our sessions as accessible as possible for those who cannot attend live, and also for those outside of the UW-Platteville institution. All of our recordings are made available on the Campus Climate YouTube channel approximately 3 days after the live session occurs. So it takes us a little bit of time to clean up transcripts and make sure that the recording is good to go, but that's where you can find all of our recordings. If you have questions, comments, or concerns about the MCIC series at any time, please utilize the Zoom chat, either publicly or privately. We also have someone monitoring our campus climate email address throughout this session, and you can contact us there at any time. And finally, I would like to introduce Natasha Guyer. Natasha Guyer is a disability specialist for services for students with disabilities at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville. She hosts Disability Dialogues, which is a four-part series that focuses on examining perceptions around disability and disability identity. The series will involve discussions centered around issues faced by the disability community, and today's topic is invisible disabilities and neurodiversity. So now I'm going to turn things over to Natasha.
Thank you, Emily. Just give me a quick second to share my screen here. Okay. The focus of today's dialogue is the experience of folks with invisible disabilities and the emerging concept of neurodiversity. I want to make a note that the disability community is very diverse, and I do not by any means represent or speak for the entire disability community. And the information I present today is gathered through research, interactions with the disability community, and my experiences working with disabled folks. I also want to point out that we are going to talk about some potentially sensitive topics, and we may not be all in the same place or have the same experiences or use the same terminology related to disability, and that's okay. I just want to point out that this is a safe space and it's okay to feel uncomfortable or make a mistake, but please feel free to share and participate. So ways that you can participate today are you can use the raise your hand function to raise your hand at any point in time and speak. You can find that under the, let's see, the reactions button is a little smiley face and there's options under there to raise your hand. You can at any point in time unmute your microphone to speak. You can use the Zoom chat to respond to questions, ask questions. You can use that publicly or privately, so you can send it to everyone or myself or Kaden or Emily. We will be doing a couple whiteboard activities and you can write on the whiteboard. And then you can use that little Zoom reactions button, which is the smiley face emoji, to just put some reactions up. I think there's a yes, no, thumbs up, different spaces that you can use. So I want to start out by just talking about what invisible disabilities are. So a definition of invisible disabilities is a disability that's not readily apparent. It's unknown unless it's disclosed by the individual with the disability. And some common examples of invisible disabilities are autism spectrum disorder, any sort of chronic health condition, learning disabilities, mental health impairments, ADD, and ADHD. So we have been talking about microaggressions throughout the series. We went through kind of a long list of them in the first session, and we went through some that are more related to folks with apparent disabilities in the second session. And so I'm going to focus on some of the microaggressions that folks with invisible disabilities experience. And the reaction to folks who have invisible disabilities is often very different than reactions to folks with apparent disabilities. And so some of the common microaggressions they might experience are the denial of your disability experience. So people might say, oh, I can't tell that you're disabled, or it doesn't seem bad, or, oh, I get headaches too, so I get it. Questioning or asking for proof. So you seem fine, or why can't you just, a common microaggression for folks who have invisible disabilities are they're asked to stop being disabled. And I don't mean like outright, like, why don't you just stop being disabled? But through other means. And we never ask folks who have an apparent disability, a physical disability, we don't ask them to stop being disabled, but we frequently do this of folks who have invisible disabilities. So one example I like to share is, let's say I'm struggling in class to see the board, to read my books. And so I go to the eye doctor. The eye doctor prescribes me a pair of corrective lenses and I start wearing them. No one ever says to me, are you sure you need those? Like, can't you just, squint your eyes, or can't you just do this? But we ask folks with invisible disabilities all the time to, just suck it up, just relax. You're just going to have to deal with it. This is the way society is. And we don't ask that of folks with other disabilities. We also ask folks with invisible disabilities to adapt to the environment instead of adapting the environment to them. By not providing accommodations or expecting that they earn those accommodations. We ignore or discount a person's potential. So assuming that because of their disability, they're not going to be able to do a certain thing, that their disability permeates all areas of their life. And then another thing that we often do to folks who have invisible disabilities is we offer unsolicited advice or cures, right? We're often try to cure them. So whether that be essential oils, or have you tried, meditation, or maybe if you got more exercise. So with these in mind, can you think of any examples of these microaggressions that you have either seen or experienced yourself? And you can feel free to raise your hand or unmute or type in the chat. Emily's saying in the chat that she has definitely heard of all of these. Austin, go ahead.
So we don't really have it on here, but sometimes I hear that, oh, I think I have that too. And that can hit home.
Right. So like self-diagnosing, saying, oh yeah, I experienced that too. So I must have that disability, which is kind of minimizing the disability, isn't it? I'm saying that, it's no big deal, or yeah, I have that too. So I completely know what you're going through, when maybe that person really doesn't have that disability. Erin put in the chat, you are just a worrywart. It'll be fine. Stop overthinking it. Just calm down. Great. These are great examples. And so with those, Austin, did you still have your hand up? Okay, took it down. I wasn't sure if you put it back up or I forgot to take it down. Thanks. Amanda wrote, one I have heard is sarcastic comments about people who park in accessible parking. Right. We don't know what a person's going through. And so if a person who doesn't look like they have a disability is parked in an accessible parking space, if they have the proper tags, don't question that person. You don't know if they have a heart condition or, chronic fatigue or something else going on that they need that parking spot. So, if they have the plates or the tags, let it go. It's not for you to judge whether you think that person is disabled or not. So I want to look at some of the microaggressions that we find every day in society. So I'm going to go through these. And of course, if you want to look for microaggressions, Twitter or the comment section of the internet is just a great place to find all of these things. So I will read through these. And as I'm going through them, think about what microaggressions you see, why these are problematic, or if you feel like these sentiments are uncommon. So the first one is, in my opinion, all diagnoses are BS and giving psychoactive medications to kids is immoral. To view ADHD as a valid diagnosis seems remarkably lacking in critical thinking. Another one by Donald Trump, healthy young child goes to doctor, gets pumped with massive shots and many vaccines, doesn't feel good and changes. Autism, many such cases. Pierce Morgan, 34 million UK adults are mentally ill. What utter nonsense. Man up, Britain, and focus on those who really need help. Here's another one. What it is likely we will find on the El Paso shooting tragedy. The shooter is a young male. That much we know. If he fits the pattern of so many young mass shooters, we will find a history, father absence, a history of being bullied, and his being somewhere on the autism spectrum. And then a response to that one, I can't speak for this shooter, but usually the young men who do this have something though, friends, family, they're rarely all alone in the world. A lot of times there does seem to be autism involved, but nobody wants to talk about it. Another tweet, most depression is a choice. Constant flow of negative thoughts is your choice. Don't add me. When you think of all these school shootings by kids, think of this. Our children are doped up and drugged their whole life. Vaccines galore. Look at all the autism. Did you know anyone with autism growing up? Another one. Let's not give kids a silly label and prescribe them amphetamines. This brave, straight talking politician. Another one, remember anxiety is created by you. Sometimes you got to let life play out and remind yourself to be happy and the answers will come. Chill your mind out, go for a walk, talk to a friend. And the last one, no, your 7-year-old doesn't have ADHD like the teacher said. They're 7 and just need to get their energy out. Stop feeding them meds. Schools are taking away recess and playtime for elementary students. Let kids be kids. So what are some reactions? Can you identify any of the microaggressions we talked about on the previous screen? Or tell me why you think these might be problematic? Or if you feel like these sentiments are rare, these are things that I had to dig deep to find, or if these are common. And Emily wrote in the chat, wow, this all hits home, especially this week.
Unfortunately, at least in my experience, these statements are not uncommon. They're, unfortunately quite common sometimes. And I think a frustrating part for me is that, especially with some of the kind of more medical comments or making comments about medication, mental health, medical things, at least from the surface, from what I saw from the people's comments that you put on there, it didn't seem like any of them really had any expertise or knowledge or research based in terms of their opinions. I think there was one person that had a doctor in front of their name, but again, what do they specialize in? There's a lot of different doctors, and I think that's really frustrating. And unfortunately, these voices, for whatever reason, get amplified, and then it just kind of creates this kind of tidal wave from there.
Yeah, I definitely agree, Jason, that, these are not uncommon. And there's a couple comments in the chat. Erin said, I see comments like this all the time. These are not rare. Hear and see these on a daily basis, said Laura. Emily said it paints autism like a catch-all for deviant behavior, WTF. And then Erin wrote, they are very difficult to read. It's hard not to engage in trying to correct them, but often not worth it. Yeah, so getting in battles with armchair physicians on the internet is sometimes not worth our time. And then Trepper wrote, seeing some of these when talking about who qualifies for the COVID vaccine. Yeah, definitely. Okay, and so I have another question for you. If you're a person with an invisible disability, especially a neurological invisible disability, how do you think this affects those people or yourself if you fall into that category when you see these things or when they see these things? It's invalidating, Emily says. Invalidates your experience, Molly says.
I think it just perpetuates shame. It simplifies it down to like, well, if you just think positive, your mental health would be fine. And I think it just kind of contributes to this overall shame of, well, if you just did this, you'd be okay. And yeah, so.
Yeah, great answer. Laura put hurt self-confidence. Erin, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I am someone who definitely experiences anxiety and depression. So seeing comments like that, it makes it seem like there is something like wrong with me. Like, why can't I just overcome this? Like the comments are supposed to make it sound like it's so easy to just push depression aside. Or if I just tell myself to calm down, like it'll be so easy to do it. And then I agree, it does kind of like invalidate your experience and make it feel like, well, if everybody else can do this, why can't I? And it just makes you feel that much worse about yourself and compounds a lot of those symptoms that you're already experiencing.
Yeah, for sure. Sharon wrote in the comments, it's exhausting for an individual to constantly be asking for assistance and understanding. Sonia wrote, it might stop folks from seeking out help, treatment, even if they would benefit from it. And Tammy wrote, frustrating. Yeah, I think a common theme I'm seeing from everyone's comments is that there's some sentiment or belief out there that this is something that you can control. You can control this disability. You can turn it off or on if you just try hard enough. And that belief does not exist about apparent disabilities, right? We never say you can turn your hearing problems off. You could start hearing if you tried, right? We don't do things like that. And so there's this different way we treat different types of disabilities. So I'm gonna go to the next screen. Here I have some memes that either are related to invisible disabilities or kind of invalidate disabilities, messages that people with disabilities get all the time. So the top one has a little boy, he's got his head laying down, kind of staring off into the distance, and it says, back in the day, this was called daydreaming. And then the next image has the lower half of a child's face with his tongue out and a pill on his tongue, and it said, this is called ADHD and it's treated with drugs. When did childhood become a mental illness? The next one is one of those little inspirational quotes that people post. When everything seems to be going against you, remember that the airplane takes off against the wind and not with it. I really like this next one. When eye contact is forced onto you your whole life, so you start staring at people when talking and eventually they have to look away. And then it has an image of, I believe it's from, I can't remember the name of the movie, where the Somali pirates take over the ship, and it has the Somali pirate and he's got doing that with his hands, pointing at his eyes with his hands, and it says, look at me, I'm the neurotypical now. Another inspirational quote, everything happens for a reason, that reason causes change. Sometimes it hurts, sometimes it's hard, but in the end, it's all for the best. Another meme, it says, me, I have depression. Someone, you should go outside more, go outside. Me, goes to the beach. Now it's a tropical depression. And at the bottom, there's a 4-part comic, and it's a hand raising up above the water, and it says, me having a panic attack. And then in the next pane, it says, has a hand reaching out to the hand above the water. And then the third pane, it has the hand giving the hand that's reaching out for help a high five, and it says, calm down. And in the fourth pane, the hand that's reaching up for help is sinking underwater. So again, that perpetuating that, you know, you can control your disability, you can control your mental health, just settle down. The next one, a common piece of advice for folks who have ADHD or autism or anxiety, just get rid of everything that distracts you and you'd be able to focus. And then it says autism, anxiety, ADHD, ADD, depression, and it has a picture of Anakin Skywalker saying, you underestimate my power. And then the last meme I have here, which someone clearly went online and made this about me. It says, what do you have to be anxious about, right? We say that to people who with anxiety all the time, you know, what do you have to worry about? And then it has Galadriel from Lord of the Rings saying things that were, things that are, and some things that have not yet come to pass. And Kaden writes in the comments, I want to puke every time I see an inspirational sign that says something like choose happiness or today's a good day to be happy. Right. It's perpetuating that stereotype that you can control your disability, or asking people basically, you know, it's time to turn your disability off now because it's getting to me. All right. Okay. So all of these negative messages that we get from the media, we get from other folks, affect how folks with invisible disabilities develop a disability identity. They develop it differently than those folks with apparent disabilities. Because people with invisible disabilities, they don't have that identity cast upon them, right? They have to claim it. Whereas folks with apparent disabilities, they don't really have a choice in claiming that identity. So the identities develop differently. When folks with invisible disabilities, they can pass for non-disabled. So folks with invisible disabilities first need to internally accept their disability, and then they need to come out as disabled or self-identify. And coming out as disabled or self-identifying is a process that folks have to do over and over again, right? In different situations. It's not like a one-time thing and then you're done with it. And so in that way, it very much mirrors the process of gender identity development. So some folks never come out as disabled. They never do that, or they only do it when necessary. So just some statistics, about 39% of professionals disclose their disability to their employer. And only about a third of college students on the autism a third of college students on the autism spectrum choose not to self-disclose to their college's disability services office. So I want to take a little break from my PowerPoint here and pull up the whiteboard. And I want us to brainstorm, what are the pros and cons of disclosing? Why would you or wouldn't you disclose that you have an invisible disability? So if you want to interact with the whiteboard, where it says you are viewing Emily K. Steyer's screen, there's view options and there's an annotate button that will allow you to either draw or use the T for text and type. You can use little stamps if you like what someone else wrote and put a heart or a check mark or a star by it. And then I will give you a few minutes to do that. Feel free to also type those pros and cons in the chat or raise your hand or unmute yourself. And Jason wrote in the chat, emotions are not good or bad, they just are. And unfortunately, society perpetuates the harmful message that we need to strive to only have good emotions. That is so true.
I just wanted to also remind folks that the whiteboard is anonymous, and I know we had a few issues with Huva yesterday, so if you can't access the whiteboard or the chat, like Natasha said, unmute yourself if you are comfortable or raise your hand.
And Kaden put in the chat as a reminder, if you're accessing the session through Huva, you won't be able to utilize annotation, but feel free to message the chat or Kaden or Emily if you want them to post for you. And so I can see we have some answers going up here. So some pros: accessing support services, medical care, etc. May be able to access accommodations, receive accommodation support to promote understanding. Particularly if you are successful, help others realize they can also be successful. Lots of cons over here. Label of fragility, becoming the example of disability. Another opportunity for bullying, experiencing microaggressions, having to endure the shame of stigma, potential for discrimination, lack of understanding, not being validated, respected, not wanting disability to be the identity. People see a reason for everything. Viewed as a whiner or a complainer is a con. Feeling of being different and getting special treatment. Another pro, potential increase of work satisfaction and productivity if accommodations are available. So I can see that there are quite a few cons here. And I definitely get that. I get that from students all the time. I feel that with adults, especially the people seeing a reason for everything, right? A lot of times people don't want to come out as having a disability because then there's the thought that people will be like, oh, that explains it. That explains why Natasha's such a hot mess. Right. And so we don't want that. Like, I just want to be a hot mess because people can be hot messes. Okay, so I am going to share my screen back. Okay. So based on those pros and cons that we came up with, how does not disclosing your disability to others or your school or your job impact your individual disability identity or a person with a disability's individual identity?
I think something that I've experienced is I have fluctuations in levels of productivity, right? Like there are some times that are very highly productive, really great quality things come out. Other times, not so much. And so I think the challenge of not disclosing that it can communicate like laziness or maybe just like lack of effort put forward, or it doesn't really contextualize the workflow. And so I think it helps to share those things because I think it kind of helps you be transparent about what your work style is, but also kind of where your workload needs to be.
Yeah, definitely. By not disclosing, other people might not understand. You might not feel understood. And that would hinder also developing relationships, right? It's hard to develop a relationship with someone who doesn't understand you, and you feel like, you can't tell them who you are. Emily wrote, not disclosing makes me feel like I'm the only one experiencing. Yeah, definitely, Emily. And that really leads me to my next question. How does the lack of disclosure impact the disability community? So if so many people are not accepting their disability identity, are not disclosing, how does that impact the disability community? I think one thing that it definitely does is it perpetuates the stigma, right? Yep, and Kaden, we're having the same thought at the same time. It reinforces feelings of shame. Erin says it's hard to know who else is out there, others that may understand and can be supportive. So, right, it helps, it doesn't help build community. Molly said it leads to a lack of representation. And Sonia said it gives the impression that the community is smaller than it might actually be. Definitely. So I want to take a deeper look at the stigma surrounding some invisible disabilities. And I'm going to launch a series of polls. And each poll is going to list an invisible disability. And I want you to think about that disability. And I want you to either indicate, yes, there is a negative stigma associated with that disability, or no, there's not. And I want you to be honest. So I'm not asking you if you personally feel like that's a negative thing, but rather if you feel society stigmatizes that disability. So let me stop my sharing here quick for a minute. I'm going to try and multitask and record your answers for these. So let me start with the first one. Actually, there we go. So there are 10 invisible disabilities listed on here: diabetes, bipolar, Crohn's, generalized anxiety disorder, chronic fatigue, autism spectrum disorder, lupus, major depressive disorder, celiac disease, and ADHD. So go ahead and take a moment to answer that poll. If you are unable to interact with the poll, you could maybe just list the ones you thought did have a stigma in the chat, or if you are able to interact with the reactions, there are some yes, no options in there that you could put. So I'll give you about 30 more seconds, and then I'll record all of these and show the results. Okay, and I'm going to close the poll here. And I'll pull up those results. And I'm going to quick put them in my PowerPoint. So go ahead and look at the results and tell me if you are noticing any patterns here at all. All right. Thank you for your patience while I try and put these in my PowerPoint.
Do you want me to verbalize the answers coming in the chat, Natasha?
Sure, that would be awesome, Kaden. Thank you.
Yeah. Sonia wrote, it gives the impression that the community is smaller. Wait, just kidding. Yeah, no, that's right. I thought it was like, this sounded like something we said earlier. Just kidding. It gives the impression that the community is smaller than it might actually be.
mental health related disabilities seem to be much more likely to carry stigma.
Okay, so let me share these results so you can see them all together. There are a couple more things in the chat here. Aaron said the physical health diagnoses such as diabetes have less stigma than the mental health related. And Sharon said, sure, a pattern, things appear to be controllable, have more stigmas attached, depression rather than Crohn's. Yeah, and if you look at the results that I have here, you know, it should be 57%, not 57, and you can see that with the disabilities that are more health related, body health related, that stigma is much lower. And with the disabilities that are neurologically related, that stigma that you guys put is high. It's over 90% for all of them. Valerie wrote, those that can be diagnosed by medical tests like blood work, allergen testing, or imaging are less stigmatized, right? Because you can prove it. Even though you might not be able to see it, you can prove it. You can say, this is my blood test. And also I feel like as human beings, right, we have an understanding of our bodies. We know what it's like to not feel well. We know what it's like to maybe sprain a wrist, break a leg. So we can have a little bit more empathy when someone has a health related impairment, right? We can say, I get that. I understand that. We can read symptoms and maybe empathize with some of them or have experienced some of them before. But there definitely is a lack of understanding when it happens in the brain, right? We can't see things that happen in the brain. We can't see how someone else's brain works. We don't even necessarily understand how our own brains work, right? And then Trepper wrote, I do think there's a split in the stigma between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And then Valerie agrees, yes, definitely. And I think that that split in the stigma has to do with, again, that sort of body shaming things that's going on that, you could have, controlled your ability to get type 2 diabetes, whereas type 1 diabetes is different. So I definitely think that's out there as well. And so this just goes back to then again reinforcing that perception that's out there that these disabilities that happen neurologically are within your control, and disabilities that happen with your body's health, that's not within your control. So that brings me to the concept of neurodiversity. Neurodiversity is a term that was first used by autism rights activist Judy Singer. She herself is on the autism spectrum, and she started using this term in the late 90s. She described neurodiversity as an approach to learning and disability that argues diverse neurological conditions are the result of normal variations in the human genome. And since Singer started using the word neurodiversity, it has been defined in many ways since then. I do want to point out that neurodiversity is not a diagnosis. You're not going to find it in the DSM. It's not going to be a label that you are given by a clinician. And there's debate as to which diagnoses fall under that neurodiversity umbrella. So some definitions that have been used. It's been defined as a rapidly growing civil rights movement based on the simple idea that the most astute interpreters of autistic behavior are autistic people themselves rather than their parents or doctors. Of neurodiversity, Thomas Armstrong said, it includes an exploration of what have thus far been considered mental disorders of neurological origin, but that may instead represent alternative forms of natural human difference. Just as we celebrate diversity in nature and cultures, so too we need to honor the diversity of brains among our students who learn, think, and behave differently. And then, so to kind of boil it down to a more simple answer is that neurodiversity is a term that encapsulates the diverse expression of human neurological development, which results in a wide variety of sensory and perceptual abilities. Or to simplify it even further, it's a natural differences in our brains and how they function. And Jason wrote in the comments, the hopeful thing is the increase in brain imaging and emphasis on neuroscience will hopefully help prove mental health concerns are also real. Yes, Jason, definitely. You can, if you have a brain scan, you can see neurological disabilities on those. You can see the difference in a typical brain and an atypical brain. So a couple definitions, just to clarify. Neurodiverse. People aren't neurodiverse. Neurodiverse is a term for society. Society is neurodiverse. It's made up of all different kinds of brains, both typically and atypically functioning. A neurotypical person is, they have the majority brain, right? It functions typically. I also like to refer this as the privileged brain, right? Much of the world is designed for the privileged brain. Certainly education is designed for the neurotypical mind. And then neurodivergent, and that just means that the brain functions atypically in one or more ways. Sometimes instead of saying neurodivergent, people say neuroatypical. So here I have what we would consider the neurodiversity spectrum. And some of the disorders that fall under the neurodiversity umbrella would be autism spectrum disorders, ADD or ADHD, learning disabilities, and those include dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, Tourette syndrome, and mental health impairments. And Emily just wrote she appreciates the definition. She wasn't aware of the difference between neurodiverse and neurodivergent. And then so on the right side of the screen, I have the neurodiversity spectrum, and I really like to use the wheel or the circle as a spectrum instead of a spectrum on a line, because I think when we look at a line, right, we say, okay, the middle is normal or typical or average. And then on the other end, that's low or bad. And then on the other end, that's high. And that's really not what neurodiversity is. It is either, they don't lie, neurodiverse traits don't lie on extreme ends of a normal distribution. Rather, they have a normal distribution that overlaps the normal distribution of neurotypical traits. So neurodivergent doesn't imply a deficit or an inability. It just implies it's different from the typical. So if you are more towards the center in your neurological functioning, you would be considered neurotypical. And if you are more at the edges where the brighter colors are, and that was intentional, you would be considered neurodivergent. So while some neurodivergent traits can be disabling, neurodivergent folks, atypical neurological function is often also a great strength. So I want to play a little game with you. And so I want to look at these images and ask you what you see. So I'm not going to describe them like I usually do for folks who might not be able to see them well. Rather, I'm going to ask someone to volunteer to describe what they see in this first image that I have my mouse on here, the only one that's in color. Does anyone want to volunteer to say what they see here? Valerie.
So I see three different things. In the middle, I can see a chalice-like golden vase cup thing. I can also see an older couple looking at each other with probably a woman on the right and probably a man on the left. And then also a scene probably from Latin America with two men sitting and then a woman in the ear of the gentleman on the right.
Yeah, definitely. Those are the three images that I saw. And some of you may see all three. Some of you may see only one or two, and that's fine. How about the next image, the one in the middle on the top? Does anyone want to volunteer to say what they see?
I can.
Thanks.
So I see two things in the middle, a black chalice, or the white, two people facing each other.
Yep, definitely. Two different possibilities there. How about the end image on the top? Does anyone want to volunteer to share what they see? Erin.
Okay, I have seen most of these images before, so I really wanted to give other people a chance. But this one I see a duck kind of thing. And then if you look at it, rotate it slightly, it's a rabbit as well.
Yep. So you could possibly see it as a duck where this is the bill, or as a rabbit where the nose is on the other end and those are the rabbit's ears. Oops, went too far. The shoe on the bottom, just show of hands, you can use the raise your hand feature. How many people see pink and white? Nobody sees pink. I see it pink and white today, but I see it different colors every time I look at it. How many people see it as like a aqua or a mint color in gray? Okay. So yeah, it can look different ways. And then the last image, they're all three the same sort of principle. So does anyone want to share what you see in this last image series of 3 images down here on the lower right-hand corner?
Natasha, I can.
Thanks, Sharon.
So it's an older woman looking kind of sideways because that's her nose with the curly hair under a cap with a feather plume, or it's a younger woman who is looking back over her right shoulder. So you see her ear and her jawline.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Sharon. So we've just illustrated that neurodiversity exists, and in fact, it can exist within our own minds. There are all different ways of perceiving these images. And we all had an initial perception, right? The first thing that you saw. And then for some of us, we could see both images. Or for others, we could see the second image after someone pointed it out to us, and some of us couldn't see that second image at all. So when we appreciate the ways in which people learn and experience the world, it really benefits everyone. So I want to take a second and just examine, Eric, did you have your hand up for a question or wanting to share?
Sorry about that, I did not.
Okay, thanks. I don't want to leave you out. Some neurodivergent experiences. So this quote was taken from a study that was done on college students who had either autism spectrum disorder or another diagnoses that fell under neurodivergence. In this particular one, it was autism spectrum disorder. And so they interviewed these students on their experiences. And this student said, every day, that was kind of what I was taught to do. You are to pass yourself off as normal as much as you can. And then when asked if he had been taught not to display signs of autism, he responded, as a child, yeah, no one ever told me not to do that. I mean, no one ever explicitly, but in terms of learning what are proper social skills, all of what are proper social skills are things that are not Asperger's. So when I'm told to, sit up straight, don't fidget, don't gesture, don't make eye contact, let the other person talk or finish talking before you talk. When you're told all of these things accumulatively over time, you get a sense of what normal is or what you're supposed to be doing and how your base self is not necessarily abnormal, but you have to, because society expects certain things, you have to do those things or else you will not be able to go as far in life as you could. So I'm very proud of the fact that I'm able to fake out as many people as I do, honestly. Does anyone have any reactions to that?
I do that. It just seems exhausting to me.
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly what I have written in my notes here, that would be exhausting. To have to kind of put on an act all day, every day. And Mary put in the quotes, I thought brain scans don't show psychological brain diversity at present. I'm sorry, Mary, I can't answer that. Maybe you and Jason can have a meeting and talk about your knowledge, because I bet you're both more knowledgeable about how the brain functions than I am. But it really brings home this experience that educational systems, they assess the ability on the basis of literacy and memory skills, and they aren't as accessible to individuals who are neurodivergent. And so I just want to, on the next slide, take a quick look, and I know we're running low on time, at some of the messages that students are given day in and day out in school. So raise your hand to speak, use looking eyes, follow directions quickly, focus on your work, collaborate well with your group, walk in a straight line, sit in one spot during class, raise your hand to leave your seat, keep your learning community happy, be attentive in class and follow the instructions given by your teacher, and then some rules of life: smile, give it time, be kind, don't compare, don't give up, make peace with your past, and stop thinking so much. if you're neurodivergent and you're constantly bombarded with these messages, and these are things that you can't do consistently or well, or maybe even at all at times, how are you going to start feeling about yourself? So probably not good, right? You are constantly given the message that the way you are doesn't fit in. So does anyone want to brainstorm with me some ways that we can make the educational environment more accessible and more friendly to neurodivergent folks so they don't feel like they have to hide or trick everyone?
I can, so just generally not requiring folks to do things that don't work for them. So like making direct eye contact or not being able to move at all. I think education system is getting a little bit better about some of that, but I think there's a long way to go.
Yeah, for sure. Some flexibility within these rules, right? That paying attention doesn't have to look just one way, right? Paying attention can look different ways. Someone put build trust, which is not usually possible, right? So it takes time to build a relationship with a student and build trust for them to kind of be able to ask for what they need. Kaden wrote, allow kids to STEM when they want or need, right? Create spaces within classrooms for students to get up and move around at the back. You can create ways to do that where it won't necessarily distract everyone else. I think checklists are super helpful for folks who are neurodivergent. So are clear directions and multiple ways to participate. Often participation looks like raising your hand and verbalizing an answer. You know, there's lots of ways I've given you to participate today. So maybe allowing that answer to be written on a card and handed in, or written in the chat, or, you know, making a list that you hand in at the end of class. And so following the rules can look different ways too. So just sort of demonstrating that can look differently for different people. So I want to definitely get to some of the strengths of neurodivergent folks. Strengths of neurodivergent individuals may indicate an evolutionary reason for why neurodiversity disorders still exist in the gene pool, right? Typically when something's not advantageous, natural selection kind of weeds that out, but that's not happening with neurodiversity. So an increasing number of scientists suggest that neurodivergence may have given specific evolutionary advantages in the past as well as the present. So some of those are to systemize. So the ability to systemize might have helped prehistoric individuals with autism spectrum be highly adaptive. In fact, autism activist Temple Grandin said that some guy with high functioning Asperger's developed the first stone spear. It wasn't developed by the social ones yakking around the campfire. Three-dimensional thinking. So an individual with dyslexia's three-dimensional thinking skills may have been highly useful in pre-literate cultures in designing tools, plotting hunting routes, constructing shelters. High energy and creative expression might have increased sexual and reproductive success, giving people with mania or hyperactivity a potential evolutionary advantage. Hyperactivity, distractibility, and impulsivity displayed by individuals with ADHD might have been useful traits in hunting and gathering societies, for searching for food, and responding quickly to environmental stimuli and hunting prey. And those strengths continue to be assets. So for example, 35% of entrepreneurs are dyslexic. Folks with ADHD have high spontaneous periods of idea generation. In studies, researchers have observed that participants with ADHD and bipolar disorder show greater levels of novelty seeking and creativity than the control subjects. Folks with autism spectrum disorder are often able to see past emotional bias and look at things beyond face value. And individuals with dyslexia have been found to have global visual spatial abilities, including the capacity to identify impossible objects. And I looked up impossible objects, and please talk to the math department and the engineering department if you want to know more about impossible objects. But they can process low resolution or blurry scenes, perceive peripheral and diffused visual information more quickly and effectively than individuals without dyslexia. So those skills may put them at an advantage in careers requiring three-dimensional thinking like astrophysics, molecular biology, genetics, engineering, and computer graphics. And Mary wrote, listing these strengths and getting the word out to everyone on our campus will really help with our common misunderstanding and ongoing stigma. I definitely agree with that, Mary. So then looking at the time, I know we are just about at time. So I do have some images here of representation of neurodiversity in film and television. And I just want to point out that when I was looking for these, I was really impressed that I was able to find quite a lot of examples of neurodiversity in film and television. And some of the good things about these portrayals are that they're often positive. They're relatable. A lot of these folks are relatable. They're accurate frequently, not always, but frequently. And there are a lot of representations that are accessible to children, which is great because it helps children understand neurodiversity and normalize it. And then things that might need to improve about these, of course, more neurodivergent actors or even neurodivergent advisors who are kind of consulting on the script and helping the actors who might be portraying those roles, more accurate portrayals that are maybe a little bit less tropey. And so I'm going to skip that slide there. That's just a short video I had. And within your head, feel free to sort of think about going forward how your thoughts, words, or actions might change. But I do want to, now that we are right at time, if you want to hang out and have additional questions, or I can answer a couple questions quickly. But I do want to acknowledge that some folks may have to leave. So if there are any questions, I will be happy to answer them now and hang out for a few minutes afterwards. And let's see. Valerie wrote, can we have additional staff training offered regarding communication with neurodivergent people? Because many of us were raised with the sit still, pay attention, make your work teams happy framework. There may be an implicit bias that may be impacting our tolerance, patience, effectiveness, and social interactions. Yeah, Valerie, I think that's a really great idea. And that's something that definitely could be offered on campus. Are there any other questions or comments that folks want to share?